Today on the Skid Factory, we're doing a rebuild on a Clevo. Welcome back to the Clevo Factory. If you've been following along, you'll recognise John's ute, although it's in a little bit less of a complete state at the moment due to a little issue with loose flex plate.
Pretty standard state if you ask my wife.
Yeah, it's in its natural home on blocks in the garage. But we're going to sort that out shortly. Do a bit of a rebuild on this here Clevo.
So tell the story of what happened and how the events folded out, Alan.
So we had it all wired up with the VMS and running on the carburetor. There was a lot of fuel running out the exhaust and getting in our eyeballs. So we thought we were ready to go. So John took it home and tidied a few little bits and pieces up on it and was loading it on the trailer to take to the Hoffs, and it was making some horrible noises, was it not?
Box full of hammers.
Nice.
Metal box full of hammers.
In the meantime, we've looked over some footage from the racing episode that we did on the car, and you could actually see there was no oil pressure on the gauge in one of the shots where the trans brake was being released, so that sort of prompted John to maybe pull that engine down and have a bit of a squeeze and see what sort of health it was in. And it had copped some melted spark plugs and stuff during that racing
Have you got them
event.
still, John, or like photos of them somewhere?
Spark plugs?
Yeah, I never got photos of them.
Oh, might have a couple.
Yeah,
I think there was
we never showed that in the episode.
There might have been a bit of disgust in loading it on the trailer at the time, I recall.
Yeah.
But yeah, so things weren't 100% correct, and you always got to expect that there might be some bearing damage when things like that happen. So John's pulled it all down, and it wasn't too bad, was it?
No. Not as bad as I thought.
You want to show us the bearings? You showed like the one you showed me before.
I thought it was going to be carnage. That's the worst of them.
Yeah, okay. So it's really general wear, would you say?
Yeah, they've been in there for a fair while.
Yeah. How old is this combo then, since the rebuild?
8-9 years.
Okay, there you go.
It's probably due for a bit of a look.
To freshen up.
That's
Yeah, I've had it apart when I did the turbo on it, but didn't change any of that stuff.
So talk us through what you've done so far, John. What's happening, where we're up to. This is the old Express rebuild, the magic YouTube
Actually,
rebuild.
we didn't really go into the internals of the engine much because I didn't actually know what was in it.
Okay.
John said it's just junk and it's going to blow up, but it doesn't look like junk to me, so tell us about your Clevo.
Let's talk about it.
We can still blow it up.
So I think we did mention the fact that John actually machined these would have been sort of a dome top
Yeah, they were 12.5 to 1.
top piston. So yeah, you've machined that off it to reduce the compression.
Yeah.
What do you reckon it is now?
Oh, it'll be 10 to 1 or so.
10 to 1? You probably could have left it at 12.5 to 1.
Yeah, I read on the internet the tuning window gets pretty narrow when you get
Yeah.
higher compressions with methanol.
Cool. Anyway, so it's got...
The internet never lies.
What are they? What brand piston?
Ross.
Ross piston? So it's Australian, isn't it?
No, I think they're US.
Is it? Okay.
Pretty
And
sure.
Eagle rods. What size bolts?
3.8.
3/8 bolts. Crankshaft. I heard about 4MA crankshafts when I was a young fella. That's what everyone used to be quoting when I was reading Street Machine magazine, talking about their Clevo. What's that mean? It's just a heavy duty? It's not steel, is it?
No, it's not steel. It's still cast iron. I think it's just a different...
Type of iron, maybe?
Yeah, different... There's a term for it. I can't remember what it is, but they used to use it in the GTs and stuff like that when they were racing, and then they ended up as in everything in the later years.
Oh, yeah, so they just upgraded to the one that was actually good.
Yeah.
Instead of giving people good ones and shit ones.
Yeah, it's got some extra cast iron goodness in there. I don't know what it is, a bit harder. Or it does. It's worn pretty well.
John, you're ready to slap this thing all together. You've done measurements.
Yeah, I've measured everything.
Yep.
Cleaned it all up.
Sweet. So, what do you want to do?
Bolt the bottom end together.
You want to talk about anything else?
We'll talk about the cylinder heads later, but let's bolt the bottom end together, I suppose.
Alright, easy.
Well, John can.
Okay.
Probably do it with my eyes closed and put the stuff in front of me. some wing nuts on
We
it.
can try that. We can try that.
Let's get a stopwatch out.
Yeah.
John started by putting the camshaft in. It doesn't need to go in first, but it's just easier because you don't have to use a long sort of camshaft holding tool so you're not taking chunks out of your cam bearings on the way through. We just had a little bit of a chat about the block itself. These blocks are cast for 4-bolt mains, and then they either machine them for it or not. I'd say most of the 4-bolt stuff would have been in an F truck or something like that, like a heavy duty sort of setup. I just asked John, why don't you machine it for 4 bolts, because he could easily do that. But the problem is then you need to buy caps. So you got to buy new caps, and you got to like line bore it. And at the end of the day, as John pointed out, it's 50-year-old block, so you might go to all that trouble and then you just have a broken block problem anyway. So he's just going to stick with it as it is now. He doesn't seem too confident about the strength of the bottom end in this, but I'm quietly confident that's going to be okay.
Too, John. That's pretty good, man.
We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. How good's the attitude on that?
So it's got
Just disrespect the whole
got a fair
floor.
bit of crank preparation, as which is just, this is all stuff that anyone can do themselves. John's obviously, you can see he's opened up the oil galleries there where it feeds into the bearings and that sort of thing. We also just were talking about a big problem with a lot of pushrod V8s is they prioritise the oiling into the camshaft and lifter galleries, because most of them would have been hydraulic lifters and they require a certain amount of oil to make the lifter system work. The only problem with that is it ends up pumping all the oil into the top end of the engine and none of it into where it really needs to be, which is in the crankshaft and rods. So there's stuff you can do to get around that. Obviously this has got a solid lifter in it, not hydraulic, so it doesn't need a lot of oil anymore. So restricting the feed into the oil, the lifter gallery is sort of the thing that you do first of all, and then you don't end up with heaps of oil in your top end. You end up with it here where it needs to be. So
that's a problem with like most old school.
Yeah, it's usually aftermarket block stuff is the only stuff that fixes it. They actually prioritise the main bearing, the crankshaft, not the camshaft. So that's obviously a complete change of the way the oil system works. So it needs to be done in the design phase of the engine, not afterwards. Cranks all in. You'll note that it's got aftermarket studs instead of bolts, and this girdle is John basically made it. He works as a like a design drafter now rather than an engine builder, so pretty good on the drawing skills as well, and just had that cut out. What's it made out of?
Steel.
Just steel? Nothing flash?
Nothing flash, just C250. Mild steel.
Just C250. I don't know what that is.
Mild steel.
Isn't that a motorbike?
Posty.
Just going to interrupt the old Clevo rebuild to let you know we've got some hoodies going for pre-order. This is available till the mid of March. I'm actually not too sure how much they are. That's a question for Al's wife. So check it out on the website. We understand that it's not always hot here like it is here in Australia, and it might be snowing where you are. So jump on it. This is a new design. We've got t-shirts. These are available to purchase. We're just doing the pre-order so we can get a bunch of orders in. Makes it easier, and they will be dispatched after we end the pre-order in mid-March. So thanks to Levi, laser cut by Levi. He's made this design for us. He sent us out a little, what would you call that thing? A sign? I don't know, powder coated up and sent it to us.
An art piece.
And then we put it on a shirt. So stoked on that. Anyway, hoodies, get on it.
Yeah.
You gonna do a double click, John?
No, I'm not allowed to do a double click.
Double click, Alan?
I'm not sure what the problem is, but I guess that's a question for the comments.
Oh, that was 3 clicks then.
Triple click. 3 times the torque. Got a good question for you, John, that you may not know the answer to because it's a bit random.
If I don't know, I'll make it up.
Why is there 302 Windsors and 302 Clevelands and 351 Windsors and 351 Clevelands? Why would they have two completely different engines that are used for the same thing at the same time?
I believe that the Windsors were first built, and then the Clevelands were a truck engine, and then used in limos and stuff.
Yeah.
And I think they started racing in the 70s in the US, the Clevelands. So then all the new stuff was Cleveland based. But then when the later Mustangs.
So when Fox bodies came out, they started
Fox bodies came out.
using 5 litre.
Yeah.
So then the Windsor became
The Windsor in the
the
US
thing?
became the thing. And because they'd 302 Clevelands are only Australian,
Oh, okay.
never made them in the US.
Right. John's got the bottom end all together. He's also fitted up the oil pump and timing chain, etc., etc. So we're up into the top end now with the heads. It's got 1/2-inch head studs. We can also see here that it's actually got fire rings, or wire fire rings, I suppose they'd call them. There's a few different ways of doing it. So it uses these plus a copper head gasket. So just a sheet of copper. Obviously it compresses down, and the fire ring gives you an extra level of sealing for the combustion chamber. Cylinder heads, they're 3V CHI. 3V doesn't mean it's got 3 valves. It's actually, it doesn't really mean anything. It's just the way they've named them. The factory's heads, you could get 2V and 4V, and the V is referring to Venturi. It means a 2V head is used with a 2-barrel carburetor, and a 4V head is used with a 4-barrel carburetor. So obviously the 4Vs are a high performance sort of higher output engine. The problem was they found over the years was the 2Vs were too small and the 4Vs were too big. So to make the ideal head, CHI, which is an Australian company, that they made what they could just call a 3V because it's halfway between. So they've kind of optimised, taken bits and pieces from both heads to make the best version of a head for airflow and that sort of thing. So they're a good thing. It's also got a matching inlet manifold made by CHI as well. And fortunately there seems to be injector bosses in that inlet manifold, so we'll talk about that another time.
So through this one first.
Wait until the carby hate comes.
Is that going to happen or not? No. Isn't that the whole point why we went this way, was to keep it carby? And...
That's because John wants to keep it carby.
Yeah, exactly right. So don't talk me into anything stupid.
I'm not talking him into anything.
I got my own stupid decisions.
He can make his own decisions.
He was so close to putting that VH41 in this thing too.
He's pretty much done all the work to change it to EFI, so it'll be just a slight amount of, just add some injectors and we're done.
Hey, I got a Boss 260. I got 2 actually, John, if you want to
Yeah?
keep it forward.
All right.
Would that even fit in between those towers there? Probably not, would it?
Yeah.
Tower delete.
Well, it's behind the tower, so it might
Oh,
fit.
yeah.
We can get rid of the towers.
Yeah, you just delete the towers. That's how John rolls.
It's just a kit.
What do you talk these up to?
40, 80 and 110.
Decent. Boom. Just going to put the sump on shortly. John's just putting the timing cover on first. You can see that this started out as a aftermarket sump, but John's heavily modified it when he changed the position of the engine. We did mention that in the first episode, I think. So it's obviously a lot longer, and the pickup is now sort of in the middle of the engine. So it's got this baffling in here. This was already in there. It's been there since he modified it in the first place. So we don't really know what was going on with the loss of oil pressure, or whether it was just the gauge or what, but there wasn't really enough damage to the bearings themselves to indicate that it totally lost oil pressure as was shown on the video. So
As you said, John, that'd be destroyed if it did lose it for as long as it was happening. So.
Yeah, well, it did it all 4 times as well.
Yeah. Well, the Haltech will tell us
it's
all.
tough as nails. Yeah, this is why we fitted a VMS, because you don't have to go and look at your GoPro footage to figure out why your engine died.
How good's your insurance though? Just stick a GoPro to the steering wheel to check the gauges and watch it back.
Yeah. Don't need data logging. Cleveland's don't need oil.
There we go.
Nice. That's all you, Alan.
John's well into assembling the valve train now. What size valves has it got? Like 2.02 or something?
2.02 to 1.64 exhaust.
That's big, which is
Probably
pretty standard for stuff like this. We were just talking about this. You can see the valves are sort of what's called canted.
Oh, you feel it from this angle, don't you?
They're not straight in the head. That's to accommodate the large size of them. Stuff like LS's and Windsors and that, they're basically just a straight line across the head for the valves. Big block Chevs are also like this. We're assuming to accommodate the size of them, so they're going in at odd angles to avoid things like pistons and stuff, important stuff. It's got 7/16 screw-in studs with guide plates. So these rockers, if you didn't have that guide plate there, they just spin around and all sorts of carnage happens, like here. That's when a guide plate broke. So the rocker then starts bashing holes in the wrong bit of the valve.
Nothing else fancy about it? No?
Solid lifters. Pretty standard sort of stuff you see in the top end of a 50-year-old V8.
Biggest camshaft I could possibly buy.
John's done the valve clearances. What'd you set them to?
20 thou.
And now the inlet manifold's ready to go on. So got the goop on the valley there because that's the only thing that stops oil pouring out on these old things.
You said something about making your own gaskets though too, John?
I drew them and got them cut. Then they got too expensive to get cut. So they're cheaper just to buy them from CHI.
Hang on. Thump. That's the Clevo all back together, ready to go back in the ute and head down to the Hoff. We're going to take a big fishing box full of jets and stuff and spread methanol everywhere, and then at the end do a little bit of keyboard catting on the VMS, the easy part. Good to see how much power it makes. John says it made about 540 going by Moroso calculators before, so I can't imagine it not at least adding 50% of that with 7 or 8, 9 pound gate. I think it's about 9 pound on the wastegate spring, so we'll see how it goes. I reckon it looks pretty good in there, so should hold together fine. Don't forget about our hoodie pre-order. Get onto it, don't miss out.
The 8-ball factory.
New design, 8-ball factory. That doesn't sound very good, does it?
No,
8-ball factory. It's not our business. Don't call me. Thanks for watching. If you want to check out some other engine builds that we've done with John, just browse back through, or will Woody put it here?
Yeah, will, yeah.
Or here.
Other corner, yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next episode.
Didn't you just do that one up, John?
I did.
What happened?
Just double checking.
You're distracting him, Alan. Alan, can you please tell me what the X's and the Y's and the V's and the X's are for in the valley?
I don't think I'm old enough to know
And the I's?
what this 50-year-old engine's casting techniques were. John suggested it was a release, perhaps to get it to release from the mould.
Someone in the comments section will know. Actually, let us know in the
Danny
comments
would
section.
probably know more than anyone else.
Some sort
Or Dan, I
of sick
should
pattern
say.
maker joke.
Yeah. They might have been just bored.
They had extra X's and Y's. What are we going to do with these? Here's another one for you. Y is a 302 Cleveland, a 4.9 litre, and a 302 Windsor, a 5 litre.
I don't know, 5.0 sounds better.
Yeah, I think that's what it is. I think it's just a
Vanilla
marketing gimmick.
Vanilla Ice rep the 5.0, I know that much.
Vanilla Ice.
Rolling
Let's go.
5.0, bros.
Yeah, it only 5, eh?
Fox body.
Where did the 8-ball originally come from?
It was the gear knob on the V12
Oh, you were
Liberty.
in the shirt, actually.
Hey?
You were in the old 8-ball shirt.
Yeah, the 8-ball was actually, well, it was an 8-ball on a pool table, I'd imagine, at one point, but Cracker made it into a gear knob for his B&M shifter in that V12 Liberty.
And then it got thrown in the bin.
And then somehow it ended up in my toolbox or something.
It ended up in that one user big deal.
Who knows? Now it just shows up everywhere.